it's funny because real estate is a long-term investment, but it actually goes through these like transformations that every 10 or 15 years is a whole new thing. So if I go back, like way back, right? My father was a real estate developer, and like everybody used to live in cities, and we went and moved to the suburbs, and so like for 50 years, all real estate was about building in the suburbs, malls, and like strip centers, and like building these sort of tract communities, and they're just billions, tens, 100 trillion was made of suburban real estate. And then in 1999, 2000, it shifted and came back to the city. And the city was basically like where all the money was made in real estate, and malls died. And then sometime in the last few years, we said like, no, this trend's going to reverse again. And we went and bought tons of housing in the Sun Belt. We said the trend's going to move from these big, expensive cities to less expensive cities like Austin or Tampa. And then what happened was but the pandemic accelerated that trend, right? Except just like accelerated e-commerce adoption. And then the thing that was a sleeper that we didn't see coming, right, was work from home, like remote work. So like technology killed the retail business, and all retail is turning into industrial, right? We used to have, a mall, now gets replaced by last mile logistics. Same thing's I think happening with office. Used to have office buildings, and all that value is being shifted to work from home. And so we've been buying and are super obsessed with like buying the kind of residential in the right geographies. And I think that's a 10, 20-year trend. Like, yeah. I mean, I know lots of really big office owners, and they hate when I talk about this, but like Fundrise is 325 people, 300 people, whatever. We were in an office building before the pandemic. We all got forced home. We renovated the office in the last year. So, okay, coming back to the office, opened the office up, but we said, look, it's optional. We're not going to make anybody go back to the office. 3 people went back. 3 out of 300. Like, wow. Literally, we're like, oh, we spent $750,000 renovating the office for 3 people. And that's when I was like, oh, it's dead. It's dead. Office. I think office is so dead. It's sad, right? Because you're going to lose $1 trillion. It's over. The office is like 20 years from now, you'll be talking to somebody who's like, you used to work in an office building? Like, how? What is that? I can't even imagine that. Like, it won't even be a thing. Office will be reborn just the same way that retail got reborn, right? Went from a mall to like Main Street, and retail changed. So office will change. We actually have a few office investments in LA. They're like old warehouses with the cool buttresses, and we converting them into like big open space. With like we have like 3 Academy Award winning production companies in them and stuff. Like that's the future of office.
So what happens in big cities like New York's, DC's, these big office buildings that maybe aren't well suited for repositioning into residential, right? I mean, is this the wave of like a financial crisis, a real estate crisis in cities?
Yeah, I mean, this happened before. I mean, New York City went bankrupt in the 70s. DC went bankrupt in the 90s. It's like, I'm telling you, it's just like these cycles you see over and over again. And so I feel like downtown DC, downtown New York, Midtown New York will see massive amounts of foreclosures. People will buy those buildings at pennies on the dollar, and they'll convert them. And they say like, oh, they're not good formats for they're not good formats for residential, but like the entire rehab of industrial buildings, right? There's this whole movement of like living in cool warehouse spaces that are industrial. Like it doesn't. People will figure out some really cool way to make office work. And as long as the cost, basically it's going to have to see a lot of foreclosures and a whole new basis. But once you do, there's just like, I mean, I think New York has 90 million square feet of office that's going to be obsolete, that will be converted. So that's 100,000 new apartment units in Midtown, right, in Manhattan. Like so the city, I mean, arguably at the end of it, like New York will be a better city because Midtown was never that great, right? So you just sort of, you make the city better by bringing more people in, and it just changes the tenor of the pace of the way like the cities work. But it'll be economically, right, for New York and DC and San Francisco and Chicago. Like, it's not going to be pretty, right? But I mean, DC 1990s. I grew up in DC, and it went bankrupt, and the city's way better than it was.
Yeah,
way better. The 6 stages of grief, right? The first stage of grief is denial, and then there's like going to be like I don't know, after that. I think it's like anger or something. So
calling your banker.
Yeah, like suing the banks or something. I don't know. And so like maybe somewhere in there's like, I don't know which stage it is. It's bailout, but usually there's a bailout by the cities to try to figure this out. So it's going to take. I mean, how much are the banks exposed, and insurance and pension funds? I mean, offices, isn't it the biggest institutional real estate class? Isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Bigger than residential from an institutional point of view. So, I mean, it's $1 trillion.